Hey, welcome back to my welcome back to my channel, Indieauthor Jill, where I read and review indie-authored books. If you've been following me on Threads, you know I've been under the weather, and for those of you who sent me pet pictures while I was sick in bed on Sunday, thank you very much. They definitely were a highlight to my day. But I did feel well enough to finally finish When Stars Explode. The cuckoo clock. So, not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I kind of felt like it was going to be a science fiction. And I don't know why it wasn't what I expected it, because the blurb on the back actually does a really good job of telling you exactly what the book is and what the story is about. And it was definitely a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of plot twists that I really liked. I was at chapter 10, and I was a friend called to check on me, and I explained the book to her, and she had me on speakerphone, and I was explaining what was going on in the story, and we FaceTimed, and I showed her the book, and she was like, all of that is in that little story, and I was like, I'm only at chapter 10, and she's like, that you got that much story out of that small of a space, and like she was quite impressed. And like the writing, the typing is not small by any means. It's not like large print. But yeah, I had finished chapter 10, so I was on chapter 11, and this is how much of the story I was trying to explain to him. But basically, it's exactly what the blurb explains. Natasha and Audrey are living with their parents, and they're kind of isolated from everyone. They are homeschooled. They don't go into town. They don't meet any people. They don't, like, the only people she's ever known is her mom, her dad, and her sister. And there's a warning that comes on the screen. A star exploded 25 years prior to where we're at right now when we come into the story, and the debris is about to hit Earth, and everybody has about an hour to get shelter. And immediately Natalie's parents grab her and her sister and shove her in the bunker that they've built in their backyard, and they run out, and she's like, well, what are you doing? And she's like, we're gonna get more supplies. And the supernova hits before the 1 hour mark is up. And the Natalie goes and investigates the damage, and there's a lot of damage, and she finds that her parents have been killed in the blast. And as they're kind of trying to figure out, they're grieving their missing parents, they're doing the very basic of cleaning up. Like, they're more trying to survive than they are live, because they're just not sure how to live at the time. Audrey is 10, and I believe that Natalie is 15. And so they're, like, trying to figure out what to do, because, like, they can't grow food. The ground is contaminated. And so they're just kind of floundering. And one day while they're hanging out, the first day when they're hanging out, all of a sudden Audrey turns invisible, and she's like, okay, well, you can turn invisible. That's a new development. We'll have to figure that out, And then as time goes on, at one point, Natalie snaps her fingers and a flame appears, and she's like, okay, that's also something we're going to have to figure out, And eventually she does end up, Audrey ends up getting kidnapped and goes missing. And when Natalie goes searching for her, and she spends like 6 months searching for her before she finds Hai and Isaac. And Hai and Isaac are stepbrothers, and they're they tell her that there's a safe haven up in Canada, and they're in Ohio at the time. And the first time when he was explaining how they're going to get to the safe haven is like on the over in Canada, but like in like over Washington area. And so they're going up to Toledo and taking I-90 or something like that, and over to Seattle, and then they're going to go from Seattle up to the safe haven in Canada. And I'm sitting there thinking, because he tells her that there's a safe haven in Canada, and the Canadian government is protecting the refugee kids. What has happened is the scientists have worked with the government, the American government, and told them what was going to happen, and they've convinced them to trust the scientists. The scientists and the government go into a safe bunker. The scientists kill the government officials and take over, and basically they're rounding up all these kids with superpowers and trying to use them to recreate a new government and a new society and what they think society should be. But they're doing it very cruelly. By basically they're ruling by force, and if the kids don't listen and don't obey, then they torture them and basically scare them into being loyal followers. And Hai tells her that Audrey had been kidnapped and taken to their camp, and then she escaped and went to the safe haven, and he said she was never brought back, so he believes she's in the safe haven. And what happens is these kids escaped these camps from these other scientists, and they go up into Canada, and Canada, because they're very protective of their own people, accept these refugee kids as their own people, so they will protect them. And so my thought process is, okay, you're in Ohio, why are you going to go up to Toledo and stay in the United States and cross over to Washington and then go up into the safe haven? If Canada is protecting people, why not just go straight up to Canada, get through the Canadian border there, and tell them that you're, refugees trying to get to the safe haven, and then they can take you to, like, that seems like it would be easier, right? Instead of staying in the danger zone longer. And it is explained why, eventually, it's one of the plot twists of why they can't go straight up to Canada and why they have to go through I-90, why they can't go at that point. And, but as they're going, and as, like, there's a lot of the trip that is, like, overlooked, and that's how she squeezes such a big story into such a small book, is that a lot of things are just kind of glanced over. But I understand why, because it's like, nobody wants to read chapter upon chapter upon chapter of, we walked through a desert, nothing happened. We were just hot and hungry and tired and annoyed at how hot it was. But we didn't encounter anyone, and we didn't, we just walked. So I get why she glossed over and got right back into the action, and I appreciate that about it. Is like, okay, we walked for like a couple of days and nothing happened, and then all of a sudden this happened. And we interacted with these people, and she talks about the different people they're meeting, and Natalie is so naive, and she makes a great entryway into this new world, the dystopian future of America in this book, because she's been isolated from everything, so there's not a whole lot of exposition from her because she's learning it as we, the reader, are learning it. So we're learning it through Natalie, and like I said, she makes a great entry point into learning about how everything is working and what's going on, because she's learning things from other people she meets. She learns from Hai, she learns information from Isaac, from Tam, from Selena, and all the other kids that she's running around with to try and figure out, one, where is Audrey, and two, how do we continue to live in this new world without worrying about whether we're going to be captured by these evil scientists that wants to control everything. And Dr. Reed is one of the scientists. I think he's the lead scientist, actually. But yeah, one part of the blurb says Natasha decides to venture into a world where no one can be trusted, and yeah, pretty much. Like, there's not, like, everybody has their own agendas, it seems. Like, with Hai, she's like, why are you helping us? Why are you don't even know me. You know, like, he's gonna do anything he can to protect Isaac, because Isaac's his stepbrother, and they have that brotherly bond of, like, we're stepbrothers in name, but we are brothers, period, because we consider each other brother. But, like, Hai explains some of the things he experienced and how he may have let somebody down while he was, because he and Isaac both escaped the camp. And he explains how one of the kids, they were trying to find their brother, and he ended up letting them down. And he's trying to make up for it. Isaac is just trying to take care of Hai because that's his brother. And everybody in the story seems to have a sibling, or even more. Like, one girl has, what is her name? Caitlin has, like, 2 brothers that she lost. So, everybody's got their own motivations of why they're doing one thing or another. And so, for Natalie, like, she wants to trust people. She's naive enough that she wants to trust people on the face value. She wants to believe that Hai and Isaac are going to take her to her sister. She wants to believe that her sister is okay. She wants to believe that Selena is not, you know, some kind of power-hungry, crazy leader. She wants to believe that everybody is who they say they are. And as she goes through, she's finding out that everybody has their own agenda. Everybody has their own reasons for doing things. Everybody has their own motivations. And at first, she's like, you know, she feels like she can't trust anyone because they're not telling her the whole truth. But then as she goes along, she starts realizing why they're not telling her the whole truth. Why they're being cagey about some things. Like with Selena, it's not till really late in the book that that Natalie finds out that both Tam and Selena have lost siblings, and that they're, you know, upset about that. And for them, their whole thing is, why do you need to know that I lost somebody? It's enough that I know. That's not important to, like, this is what we're doing, and I'm telling you what you need to know. What you need to know is what we're doing. You don't need to know why we're doing it. All you need to know is that, you know, Dr. Reed is evil, and that scientist is not to be trusted either. And, you know, they're not holding things back from her. Most of them are not holding things back from her because of malicious intent. They're holding it back because I didn't think you needed to know that. Why would I tell you that? You know, there are other people that are like, no, I'm holding that back from you intentionally, and I have my reasons for holding that back from you. And so she's learning, you know, that people don't have to tell you everything, but she's also learning that, yes, there are people you can't trust, as much as she wants to trust them at face value. She learns real quickly that there is a reality to this world that she didn't realize and that she's not comfortable with, but it's a reality that exists, and there's not really much she can do about it. And there are times when she doesn't necessarily want to play by the same rules. Like, she doesn't want to hurt anyone, but she does understand that there's a beat or be beaten mentality, or sometimes a kill or be killed. You know, so she never wants to hurt anyone. She doesn't want to kill anyone. But if it means protecting herself or her sister, she'll do it. And, like I said, she's not comfortable with it, but, you know, by the time that she sets out with Hai and Isaac, she's 17, and she's a very naive 17-year-old, which makes sense because, again, she's been very sheltered. Her whole existence has been mom, dad, and my little sister Audrey. When her parents go into town, I think she said she went into town once, and the only time she went into town was when her mom took her to the hospital for injury or a sickness. I'm not sure. I think it was a broken, like she broke her arm or something, and her mom wasn't comfortable setting the bone or whatever, but they took her to the hospital, they got her treated, and that was the only real, other than her mom and dad and sister, experience of other people she's had. And those people were, of course, professional and kind and nice. And so that's her only experience with humanity and civilization, is people are nice and good, and the only ones we can't trust is the government, because my dad says you can't trust the government. So her naivety, I can see how some people might say, well, she's pretty naive for a 15 to 17-year-old through the course of the story. But it makes sense that she would be, because she only has the knowledge that her parents gave her. She was raised in this small cabin with her sister and her parents, and like I said, she didn't know anything more than what her parents were willing to teach her. They homeschooled her, and she didn't have any friends, and she didn't, you know, go to the mall, and she didn't hang out with people. She didn't know that people couldn't be trusted. But it's an interesting, I'd like to say that it's kind of like the Hunger Games, but like it's got Hunger Game vibes, because of a cruel national leader or whatever, and there's these kids that are trying to just survive in this world, and they decide to they kind of decide that, you know, we're not going to live in fear anymore. We're tired of being guarded. We're tired of being hunted, and it needs to stop. There are 4 scientist camps throughout the country, and since Dr. Reed is the one that had Hai and Isaac, and he's the one that's closest, they decide, okay, we're going to take out that camp first, and they kind of form this small rebellion army, and the book ends with them saying, you know, making this plan of how do we take out the scientist. There's really only one way. We can't let the scientist continue to live. It's basically that simple. But the scientists are well guarded. They have their facilities that they built before this whole thing went down. They have their loyal followers that are protecting them. So the question is, okay, we have to figure out, how do we get into the facilities? How do we get to the scientist? And, you know, how many can we free? How many can we, like, if they have their way, the only ones they want to kill is the scientist. But they quickly realize that with the loyal followers, the kill count could go up. So they've got to be really strategic about this. They want to save as many of the kids as possible. And if that means that they can get some of the loyal followers to be like, wait, we don't have to keep following this guy? Sign me up, let's go. Great. But that's one of the things they're struggling with, is that a lot of the loyal followers are just kids themselves. And so they're like, we're going to have to take out kids of our own age, and like that doesn't seem fair. Or even younger than us, or kids that might remind us of the siblings we've lost. So yeah, it's a lot for them to process, and a lot for them to like come up with a battle plan. And a lot of these kids weren't kids that learned how to fight. They were just kids living in the city, going to the malls and having drinking sodas and eating chips and playing video games with their friends. Learning to fight in the real world was not part of their itinerary. So, and then they've got these new powers. Some of them can teleport, some of them can fly, some of them have super strength, some of them have mind control, and it's like figuring out, one, who can be trusted, two, who has any actual fighting skills, and three, what your powers are and how we can use them to help strengthen us. But then there's the harder question of, okay, once we get rid of the scientist, then what? We have to put together a society. We have to build a society made of kids. And yeah, some of these kids are aging up. Like Selena's 17 at the time, Natalie's 17 at the time, and Selena is younger than her, and she's got a whole city she's running. The city only comprises of about 30 or 40 kids, but she's running it. But how do you run an entire nation based off of that? Because, again, there's 4 facilities spread out across the United States of America, and they're rounding up kids by the dozens. How many kids are in each facility, and how many kids are still out there in the wild? And trying to organize all of that is no easy task. So, it does leave off with the hint of a sequel. So I hope there is more coming from Natalie Marie. Link for the book will be, a link to the book will be in the description below, as well as a link to my book, of course, and an address where you can send books if you want me to consider them for reading and reviewing. Just keep in mind that the 100 books here on the shelf are going to be prioritized. But until next time, tomorrow I will pull another number out of the TBR jar box, and we'll find out what that book is going to be. So far, this is book number 5, is it? No, this is Ambel's Whisper, the Tales of Arcana Fortune, Paragon Exordium, How to Live an Extraordinary Life, and yeah, this is book number 5. So we'll find out what book number 6 is. I can't believe it's this soon into it, and I'm already losing count of the books. But yeah, and then at the end of the month, I will go over all the books that I've read this month and tell you which one I liked the most and which one I liked the least. But obviously, if I'm reviewing the books, as you know, then I like the book enough to review it. So, but yeah, that's it. It's late. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Until next time, I will see you guys later.